All right, we are getting started with life after college, gig careers, gap year, and grad school. I just want to welcome our panelists and our student attendees to have a great conversation about short-term career opportunities that are available to students from all majors immediately following graduate school or immediately following graduation. The idea behind this breakout session was to give students an idea about various options that they may not know anything at all about, and that would enable them to learn and gain some valuable skills that they would absolutely take forward with whatever career path they pursue after graduation, and then maybe even after this particular short-term career opportunity. These options will help recent grads network professionally and develop leadership and experience in education, health, human service, and business industries. Is kind of our focus for this evening. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to just briefly describe who we have in the room, and then I'm going to ask you guys to introduce yourselves and explain a little bit more about the organization that you are representing tonight, and how students might want to interact with you. So we'll get started with Christy Jones Caldwell, is the Director of Alumni Relations and Recruitment with UAMS's College of Public Health. We also have Russ Swearingen, who is the Regional Recruitment Director for City Year, which is also a component of AmeriCorps. And Jackson McKinney, who was a medical scribe with MedOptum, and just recently was accepted into medical school. And we don't have Omar today, but I can give some information about Cider app in case anyone was interested in that. And we also have Leslie Davis joining us from MedOptum to give any additional details about scribing. So I'm going to turn it over to you all and to ask you to give kind of just a brief description of what your organizations do and what kinds of students might be interested in looking further at your organizations. Could we get started? Sorry. Could we get started with you, Christy?
Sure. First of all, I want to thank everyone for the time and the opportunity for this platform. Thank you, students, for taking the time to share your space and time with us as well. So I am, as Erica stated, the Director of Alumni Relations and Recruitment at the UAMS Fay W. Bozeman College of Public Health. We are a graduate school program, and the one thing, at least one positive thing that has come out of this pandemic is that everyone knows what public health is now. So I'm excited about that. That's been a challenge of mine for the 12, 13 years I've been doing this job, but we all know globally now what public health is and how important it is. So something that you should consider is when you're thinking about grad school, in particular at the College of Public Health, we are looking for students who wish to join the public health workforce. Public health promotes and protects the health of people and the communities where we live, learn, work, and play. So that encompasses just about everything that we do. While the majority of clinicians, which most of us are familiar with, treat people who are already sick, diseased, or injured, those of us working in the field of public health try to prevent people from getting sick, diseased, or injured as early in the life cycle as we can in the first place. And we also try to promote wellness by encouraging healthy behaviors. So I do want to say this, that we do accept all undergraduate degrees. It doesn't matter what your major is, as long as you have a bachelor's degree. It will be helpful to have some type of foundational basic science and some math, to make sure you have the right skills honed in, but you don't necessarily have to have a hardcore science degree. I do want to say this, a degree in public health right now is a highly valued commodity. Given the current situation that's been created by the pandemic that we are currently battling, Public health, you need to know, is the foundation of all health, in my opinion, because without a healthy nation, then how can that nation be prosperous, whether it's economically, socially, or otherwise? So this will provide you the opportunity to sign up and to help us get into the trenches and win this battle against the pandemic. Some people feel like they're not sure how we're going to overcome and go forward. There have been many pandemics in the past, and we will get past this one. We will flatten the curve. If you want to know more about how you can transition into this particular grad school or others, I hope that we can get some questions. But certainly we know that the events of 2020 have allowed public health to gain both attention and the recognition as a sufficient and a necessary field of science. So the things that we've seen this year encompass COVID-19 and also a lot of social justice events that are going on in our society. The other thing I want you to know is that public health is rooted and grounded in social justice. And so we fight for social justice and demand quality health, justice, equity, and equality for all individuals and all communities. So if you want to know more about how you can educate, inform, and empower and grow the public health workforce, then I want to make sure that I'm available tonight to answer questions for you about admissions, enrollment, and other things. And we can also, I'm sure that our information will be shared with all attendees. I will also be willing to set up one-on-one Zooms with you all in the future and answer any questions that you may have tonight. And I'll pass it on to my next panelist.
Thank you, Christy. Oh, and it looks like Omar is joining us. Yay! Hello, Omar. Welcome. We are just doing introductions, and Christy has introduced herself as the UAMS Public Health recruiter. And let's go ahead and hear from Russ about City Year, and then we'll make our way around to the other panelists.
Great, thanks, Erica. I'm going to echo what was just said around COVID. It's one of the unintended benefits of that has been an amplification of what is an essential service, what's an essential need within a community. And one thing I think about often is how certain gap year opportunities really fall into that. So education spaces, health spaces. So my name is Russ Swearingen. I'm the regional recruitment director for City Year, covering the southern part of the US. And we are largely an organization that places teams of 18 to 25-year-olds, the majority of which are recent college graduates, into provide supports to students, classrooms, and basically the whole school. We operate under the belief that developing the skills and mindsets of children will contribute to stronger and vibrant communities. And probably everything I just said sounds like you're developing teachers. But that's not necessarily the case. I'll dig into that in a second. I also do want to acknowledge that I represent a statewide organization called Volunteer AR, which is the AmeriCorps Commission for the state of Arkansas. So beyond City Year, I serve on the Governor's Advisory Commission for National and Community Service and Volunteerism. So I'm happy to talk about other AmeriCorps programs beyond mine, although I'll definitely talk a lot about City Year itself. So going back to City Year and kind of something that I do in my work. So I'm a regional recruitment director. And over the course of this school year, we are aiming to hire over 3,100 young professionals into 29 major US cities to serve as AmeriCorps members. That's going to start in July of 2021. So as you think about this year, whether you are like, know what you want to do and you're like, I just need a break, or you don't know what you want to do necessarily, you're like, I want to try some things out. Like, I'm interested in working with youth, but I don't know if I want to be a teacher. City Year might be a program that works really, really well for you. We are a one-year gap year program. So you get to use that as a year to fully explore an option, explore skills or experiences or networks that you want, but you don't have to worry about coming in and resigning. You don't have to worry about anything because it's a known end. And so you can really leverage that year to its fullest. People who do well with our organization, and honestly, this might sound flippant, but anyone. We are, as I mentioned, a great program for those who aren't sure exactly what they want to do. We are a great program for people who are sure of what they want to do, but they just want to give it a test before they go for it. Those that just want to take a break, or those who are really looking to make those connections. we were talking the panels before y'all got in here, and it's kind of funny. We all have these overlaps within our own networks, even though we're in different sectors. So I will say that we've had people that have come in that wanted to go to med school, but they needed experience for their resume. They want to better understand, they want experience that really spoke to their community and understanding all the different stakeholders and factors that contribute to the health of children. They want to be a pediatrician. So they did 2 years with us actually, and then jumped into a graduate school program, into a med school there at UAMS. We've had people that want to become veterinarians that are like, I need to learn how to talk to children because at some point I'm going to have to talk to children about their pet's health. And so this is a great experience for me, low risk, it's outside of my normal field. So they got a certain skill they wanted from it. We've had people with apparel engineering, apparel merchandising majors, and mechanical engineers and things like that as well. So basically the big thing to come to City Year is you have a passion or skills in mind that are going to help advance your career beyond the next 10 months to a year of the gap year. And I'll hand off.
Thank you so much. We'll ask you more questions about that in just a moment. Jackson, could we hear from you about what is MedOptum and medical scribing?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Erica. So, like she said, my name is Jackson McKinney. I was a medical scribe with MedOptum for the last 2 years before starting medical school this fall. MedOptum is a medical scribe company. It's strictly in Arkansas, based out of Central Arkansas. It started in 2012, and we're actually the largest medical scribe company in the state. With it being primarily in Little Rock, we do have actually satellite clinics all throughout the state and multiple clinics in Northwest Arkansas, as well as Pine Bluff, Heber Springs, and kind of some rural areas. So there's a good chance that even if you're not from Central Arkansas, that there's a clinic somewhere near you that you could potentially work at, but you don't have to move to, say, stay in Fayetteville or move to Little Rock or somewhere like that. We work for about 12 different specialties. So that works really well for people who necessarily may not be pre-med, but maybe they want to go to optometry school or they want to go to PT school or PA school. There's a lot of kids that come in and they scribe in ortho because they want to go to PT school. So we kind of work well for really kind of any pre-professional degree type programs that people are looking into besides just pre-med. I have to say it, we love U of A students. Our co-founder was graduated from the U of A. Probably 75% of the admin people are from the U of A. So we really love getting U of A students into the program and being able to kind of help the communities and help the state and the physicians throughout the state of Arkansas.
Thank you, Jackson. And Omar, thank you so much for being here.
Sorry about the delay.
Yes. Could you tell us a bit? I know you're the founder of Cider and also a serial entrepreneur, have lots of businesses around Northwest Arkansas. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and just kind of a brief description of what Cider is also?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Omar Kasem. I am 26 years old, graduated from the University of Arkansas in 2015 and have recently started a couple of different restaurants in the Northwest Arkansas area. And I'm also co-founding a startup I'm currently working on called Cider.app. And so Cider is a freelance platform that really makes it easy and simple for a student to get connected with small business owners that have needs, but don't necessarily need a full-out professional to be able to solve their issues. And so this is an issue that I learned very early on as a early entrepreneur, about just different little things that I was facing as far as problems that didn't necessarily warrant a full-out professional that wanted to charge a higher price point, but it was something that was just beyond my ability as far as from a technical standpoint. And so Cider really specifically focuses on areas of creativity. So everything from creative writing, graphic design, visual design, actual physical art. We have a lot of people that have interest in students to be able to help them get their businesses either off the ground or be able to help their small business at an affordable price. And we found that students have some serious interest in this gig economy work because they're able to gain a work experience in their respective industry all on a flexible schedule, so without having to do the full internship or a full 40-hour work week.
Thank you so much for that. So now that we have kind of a sense of where you all are coming from and the organizations that you're representing here tonight, I'd like for you to emphasize, if you don't mind, I think some of you kind of answered this already, but if you could kind of emphasize which students or what kind of student are you should consider applying for your organization or within your organization. And this is open to whoever would like to answer.
Yeah, I can go first. So for us, I kind of touched on pre-meds or people looking for pre-professional degrees, dental school, optometry school, PA school. In the last 2 years, we've sent scribes into all of those programs, but also people looking into do like medical sales and pharmaceutical type stuff. Within MedOptum, there's a lot of opportunity. You're going to need some clinical experience before you can go into that, but then there's also a lot of sales opportunity. We're expanding constantly in Northwest Arkansas and all throughout Central Arkansas. So we're looking for people who are interested in, maybe being on kind of sales calls type things and, different stuff like that outside of just the pre-med realm. But are interested to be in the medical field, but not necessarily want to go to medical school.
Perfect.
I'll go. A lot of the folks who come to City Year come after they're graduating from college or they're prepping to, and they're not exactly sure what they want to do, but they know generally they want to help or something really large about like getting involved in their community, and they're looking for opportunities to figure out how they might do that. City Years are really large national nonprofits, a really large AmeriCorps program. So it has a little bit of an elevated visibility, although we're still, needing to push a little deeper into it so people are aware that it does exist. We hire all the way through the summertime, and so often people graduate and they just don't know, and they're like, I found you in July. That's where a lot of our folks come from. I would say the more natural fit for a lot of people are those that are coming from an education program, a social work level program, or are interested in going to like math or science or English, and they just want to take a year off. So you're gonna get valuable experiences if you want to work with youth, potentially as a teacher or a social worker, for just that time period. And it buys you that time, allows you to get the experience to figure out, do I really want to be a school counselor? Do I really want to be a classroom teacher before I commit to a full career in those spaces? And then the third group that we see come through often are those who come from the humanities. And again, it's kind of the same that I talked earlier, like people who they want to do good, but the career or like the job market might be pretty tight. And they want to still get the skills. They want to be able to use their academic experience, like how to read, how to do basic math sort of things, and share that with students who may be at an under-resourced school across the board. And just, again, it's a 10-month experience. So it allows them to kind of stay in their line of thinking, but just tweak it a little bit in more of an applied way.
Someone asked a really great question to me about postgraduate certificate programs. That's a great question because that's still considered most of the time, and depending on what you're doing, it's still graduate school and it's giving you that education. So one thing you will learn about graduate school and advanced education, and Jackson probably can attest to this, you're kind of talking yourself in and out of that situation every other day. You're thinking about all the reasons that you want to do it, and you've prepared and you've been planning for it. And then you may think of 3 or 4 reasons why not. And so you're kind of on this perpetual, seesaw, if you will, as you're researching and finding out things. So I think that a certificate, while you're trying to make up your mind about what you want to do, or if you have that time for a gap year, sometimes it's a couple of gap years, or let's say you have a plan A, and this plan A is to apply to this professional program and you don't get in the first time. that doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater and you throw away the entire plan. It's okay to have a plan B or come up with something alternative. Now, if you don't do anything between reapplying to that program that maybe you ambitiously want to attend, you won't have anything to show. You could volunteer, you could do some other things, but if you don't go back and do any other educational pursuits, what else are you going to add to that application? So that's when grad school or a postgraduate certificate program, which we have several at the UAMS College of Public Health in several areas. I'll make sure that I share our website with you guys in the chat here before we end. But that's a great way to do that. The other thing that's wonderful about a certificate program is it's not as long and you're not fully committed to a full degree program. Most certificates, graduate level certificates, can be obtained in about a year and a half, less than 2 years. So that's a really, really great segue until you maybe either figure out what you want to do, but it's also a way that if you don't get into your first choice of a program, then you can show that you can do graduate level work and then do really well in that program and enhance your application if you then decide to reapply in the future. So that's a great way to do that.
Awesome. And Omar, I know you mentioned that CIDR is specifically related to creative. Can you tell us a little bit about the applicants that you're seeing, students who are using
Yeah,
it?
for sure. Yeah, so most of the students that are the early adopters of CIDR are actually existing entrepreneurs. They're individuals that really have an interest in being their own boss, paving their own way, and are really looking to explore different avenues on how to expand their scope. For a lot of photographers and graphic designers and models, for example, their range of work really is only at the university or university affiliated businesses. And so, through CIDR, they've been able to get connected with businesses that they would have not have had they not, got on the platform. And so we see a lot of creatives, but specifically a lot of creatives that are looking to possibly start their own venture, or people that are very intentional about knowing where they want to go.
So we've talked about who should be applying to your organizations. Let's switch that just a bit. And could you guys describe what kinds of, what knowledge, skills, and experience would people who are participating in your organizations or your programs, what would they be gaining from that experience?
I'd probably say for CIDR, it's primarily project management and really understanding how to implement a strategy that revolves around working with different clients and customers. I think that especially in like the creative space, it's very easy to get into a niche and just specifically work with a specific type of business or person. And with CIDR, there's so many different opportunities that allows a student to be able to explore different aspects of their trade, that they're required to learn to think differently and how to utilize their skills differently. But also, if you're juggling around multiple projects, you've got to be a lot better about time management and project management. And so I'd probably say that's the characteristics that you can gain from doing any freelancing in general.
Thank you. How about medical scribing? What beyond boosting your application for a pre-professional program, what are some of the skills that that you feel like you've gained from scribing? Jackson, sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, obviously you're going to get tons of clinical experience, and then there's even research opportunities within, the physicians that you work for. But outside of that, some things that you're going to get, I mean, the letters of recommendation are incredible. There are numerous physicians that we work for that are even clinical associate professors at UAMS. I mean, so you're going to be working with doctors who are going to be hand in hand with majority of the schools in the state. But outside of that sort of stuff, things that I've kind of gained along the way were leadership skills. You're going in from just a regular scribing clinic every day to team lead scribe, and so you're kind of in charge of peers, people your own age. And so that I think is, you gain a lot of experience when you're having to work and lead and manage people, that are your age. It's kind of hard to necessarily gain their respect. And so to be able to kind of learn how to do those things and navigate those waters, and learn how to kind of be in charge of people that are, kind of have the same end goal as you, is awesome. And I think that really helped me along the way, as well as time management skills. Clinic is early in the morning, so you have to be able to, get up, and it's not like getting to your 10 a.m. class, throwing a hat on it and rolling out senior year. You go from that to immediately clinic starts at 7 o'clock, and it may be in, Heber Springs. And so you're getting up at, 5:30 in the morning and riding with the doctor to go down there to, to take care down to those patients. So there's a lot of things outside of, just the clinical experiences that really kind of help, mold you and prepare you, as well as just preparing you for the rigor. When you're seeing 65, 70 patients a day in a 7:30 to, 3:30 time frame, that's a lot of patients. That's fast moving. And so, to be able to kind of handle that and to keep up with that really kind of prepares you for school. Because, some of the things that, I've noticed and have been told is, medical school is like trying to drink water from a fire hydrant. I mean, it's just coming at you a million miles an hour. You go from 3,000, 4,000 level courses to 10,000 level courses. I mean, so it's a lot of stuff quickly. So to be able to do that, if you can handle clinic in that way, then it'll definitely help prepare you for your future.
Awesome.
I want to add, Erica, that we're in the midst of this pandemic, and as I mentioned previously, we will get past it, but there are so many things, there are so many unknowns that are upon us and probably awaiting us. And if you have this strong desire for helping people, making an impact, working with individuals and communities, and helping people figure out how to modify and adjust to, we hear this term new normal, right? So, our new normal, I'd like to use the term the now normal, because we've been using new normal for some months now, but it seems like what the normal is today may be something totally different by the end of this evening or tomorrow. And a career in public health, whether you're in the healthcare workforce on the front lines, not everybody's running to get in those lines. A lot of people would assume that, but believe it or not, in the midst of this pandemic, I was asked by my dean a few months ago, what did we think the fall projection numbers were going to look like? We had a record year of enrollment. We had our highest enrollment that we've had in the history of the college this semester. So that tells me a lot. It tells us a lot about what we see on the news and in our communities, that we understand we're in this fight together, and it's going to take people that are dedicated to figuring out how to figure out these solutions for our new or now normals. And if you're interested in doing that, a career in public health, whether you're doing research behind the scenes or you're on the front lines, you are going to be needed. And the thing about this is, I think that this is going to be a career that will have longevity for many, many years to come, because there are going to be lots of things that will still have to be figured out for many years ahead of us.
Awesome. And I see that we have a question from a student, Christina, about taking a gap year. Russ, a lot of times city year is considered a gap year. You want to talk a little bit about that, and then also if anyone knows of other resources for students to find additional gap year programs, please feel free to add those into the conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks for that one. First off, I'm always happy to talk about a gap year. Erica can definitely connect you with me at any point in time. Happy to chat on the side, some virtual coffee or whatnot. There's a career fair tomorrow. I also will plug those for the university. A lot of gap year programs show up at all the different career fairs because we all fall into different niches of that. So as you're researching, going to a career fair in different companies that are there, you might find us. So like you'll see City Year tomorrow. I'll be there with two of my other colleagues who one just moved to Fayetteville, by the way. And then another one who is moving up to Mizzou from Little Rock, unfortunately. Yes, there are some places you can go to look for it. The one that I'll talk about is the AmeriCorps website. So you can literally go to like, I think it's americorps.gov, or you can just Google AmeriCorps programs by state or AmeriCorps programs by interest area. And it's going to pull up a ton of different programs that range from a gap year in environmental focus, veterans affairs, education, public health, you name it, there's going to be something that fits into that. They might not all be in your geographic area, and that's something that we can always discuss as well. But there is that website where you can go into and search a whole host of it. There's another organization called USA Gap Years, and it's primarily geared towards high school students, weirdly enough, but it promotes things that are also gap years that are in the international field well beyond the domestic as well. So you could check them out too. I'll say another thing about gap years as you're looking at them and trying to figure out what might work for you or where you want to go. It's not necessarily a skill or an experience, but it's a connection from it. So again, I'm in 29 different cities across the country. And if you wanted to go to Washington, D.C. after graduating from the University of Arkansas, and you want to work on K Street or in policy or for a legislator, but you haven't made the connection yet, you could get a position with City Year on the ground in DC, do the work, build your resume, build your connections, but also, leverage your time there to kind of network into the industry that you're really most interested in. Leverage our boards that exist for some additional advisors and additional support for it. So yeah, I'll see if I can find that link to the AmeriCorps website. I'll drop it in the chat. Again, I'm happy to chat about it from an Arkansas perspective. Within the state of Arkansas, and there's actually a new governor's advisory commissioner who is a student at the University of Arkansas. I just found out. And what we're looking to do is really expand our reach as all of different programs, bring on some new programs to sponsor, as well as see, what parts of the state they really fall in. So we currently have a little bit of a deficit in Southwest Arkansas, but we have several in Northwest Arkansas, Central Arkansas, and Northeast. A lot of them are focused on education, but in different niches. So if that's an area that you're interested in, again, check us out at volunteerar.org. I'll drop those links in the chat shortly.
Thank you. Yeah, and if you don't mind adding the links, that would be very helpful, I think.
I'll kind of jump in on and kind of piggyback off what Russ was saying. So MedOptum really does kind of, I don't want to say we specialize in gap years necessarily like Russ was talking about, but that's what majority of our candidates look like. They're people that want to go into a pre-professional program, they're pre-med, they didn't get into school, or they're just not ready to go to medical school. We have a lot of kids who come in and they've already been accepted, but they just want to defer a year because they just want to work, save a little money, kind of just have some fun, have some experiences. They don't want to go from 4 years of college straight into 4 more years of studying. So what's nice with us is you don't have that end of the year, and then you're done. We're kind of unique, and if you want to stay on for a second year, then you can. I'm a prime example of that. I went in to do my gap year. My wife was in school at UAMS for dental hygiene. So after her first year, I decided, I enjoy working for MedOptum. I'll just do another gap year, let her finish school. So there's a lot of wiggle room with that to definitely be able to work. If you want to start with one gap year, but then you want to move it to a second one, we've got kids who have worked for 3 or 4 years for MedOptum. And what's nice about our company is, we're small, we're close knit, and we're kind of like a family. So there's a lot of room for growth. There's a lot of room for you to kind of move up the ladder within MedOptum. So, your gap year doesn't have to be so stressful as in, I've got 1 year to get everything figured out. I've got to get into school, during this time. you know, you can, there's a lot that you can do within MedOptum during your gap year or 2 or 3.
Thank you for that perspective. Any other thoughts about gap years?
Yeah, I think that, for a, as far as the term gap year, it's very interesting because people typically assume that or think that it's like taking a year off or kind of hanging out for a little bit before you go do what it is that you really want to do or go do the hard stuff. And I think if you're very intentional about, I've been living on a gap year for for 5 years now. As far as, I always thought that I was going to start, this business and then eventually go to law school, later down the road. And here I am, still in my entrepreneurial story. And so, I think once you graduate from school, the thing about your 20s, and one thing that I always tell all of the students that I teach at the university, I teach new ventures development, is in your 20s, you have limited liabilities. You don't have as much responsibility as you do in your later 20s or your early 30s, when you have to start thinking about, grown-up stuff like life insurance and marriage and things like that. And so taking the opportunity to really just go do a passion project, I think is extremely important. And I don't like when people discredit, these passion projects as I'm planning on hanging out for a year, because you can really learn a lot about either yourself, about the world, or just, gaining different perspective. There are people in the entrepreneurial journey, from the beginning of time that have come out with amazing business ventures simply because they just did something that was a passion project that allowed them to see the world in a different way, and they decided to go off and run with it. An example being like Tom's Shoes. Had this guy not gone out and seen what was happening, I think it was in Guatemala, as far as the doing a missions trip and everything, that company wouldn't have been invented. And so I think that gap years are just a great opportunity to be able to gain an insight in a way that you don't learn from the books, and it's just by going out and living life.
Omar, those are some great points. I really appreciate you sharing that. And I may need to, take some of that to heart, well beyond a gap year. But I want to say this, and I think that both Russ and Jackson will probably agree with me. That's also a wonderful year for you to, if you can work, that's great, but also do service. A lot of, especially if you're going into a health career or professional career, a lot of medical school applicants don't realize how much emphasis there is on what you've done beyond your quantitative scores or your academics. People want to know, what have you been doing? What do you have experience doing? So during that gap year, that will be a wonderful time to do something like City Year or some other program, but also to get you some service, some service experience, some shadowing or some other things that you can do. And that's the wonderful thing about the company that Jackson previously worked for, is you were able to do that and work at the same time. And so think about it as a year for you to enhance and empower yourself.
You could also scaffold your gap years. That's the other kind of fun part about it. So graduate college, come do a year with City Year and save up some money. You also receive an education award to use towards future grad schools if you want to. Go in, do some script work, and then go and get a master's in public health. And you can scaffold these things and really kind of build your gap as a career. And again, know that any step of the way you can pivot, and you haven't necessarily burned a bridge at any way, shape, or form within that process.
That's perfect. I so often hear students say that they need to figure out what they want to do, when they grow up, and that's not really how it works. We're all sort of figuring it out one experience at a time, right? And so you guys are really speaking to that idea, that with the scaffolding idea, or Omar, having a 5-year gap year and or finding a graduate program and realizing, oh, I didn't realize how interested I am in this particular area. You wouldn't have known that had you not had that experience. I want to just also put a plug in for Handshake. I just quickly Googled, or I went into Handshake to see, just putting in the search gap year, and hundreds of positions and opportunities came up. So for students looking, check there too, as well, also at the career fair tomorrow. I want to also ask, we sort of touched on this a little bit, just in terms of the impacts of COVID on our worlds, both personally and then also with our changes in social, in our social world. But I wonder if you guys might speak a little bit to how you've seen your particular industry or your area change in this past year in transition.
Oh, I could talk for days on this one. I think the most interesting thing interesting is probably not the right word. It sounds too upbeat. One of the more drastic impacts that we don't even fully understand yet is that we've seen in the education sector, students be out of the classroom for 5 to 6 months. So there's a big kind of question about, what does learning loss look like? What does skill retention look like? And I think in my sector, being the education largest sector, or the youth development sector, there's a lot of unknowns there. And so gap year programs that are operating in those sectors right now are going to do their normal program, but they're also looking at what has been created by COVID, what are the gaps? And we're really going to be working and collaborating alongside our partners and different stakeholders to figure out what are those things. And if there's any new issue that pops up, how do we plug in? How do we provide that capacity support?
Yeah, so for us at MedOptum, there wasn't a lot of change. I mean, we were on the front lines. We were there every day. I never missed a single day of scribing in the middle of COVID, March, April, May. I mean, all of it. I was there every single day. I was in clinic. We were still seeing patients, especially when you work in a field where there's cancer. Cancer doesn't stop for COVID, so we're not going to stop either. Obviously we implemented some things if people weren't feeling comfortable or whatever. We have telescribing, so we're able to have the technology to where the scribe can be at home and still be connected to the physician, to still be able to hear and do everything that they need to do, but they could stay at home if they wanted to. But most people who want to go into the healthcare field, they're there because they want to make a difference, and they don't want to sit at home. They want to be on the front lines. They want to be battling it. We gave them the opportunity to be able to do both. If you wanted to be in clinic, then you could certainly do it, and if not, then you could telescribe. But I will say in the healthcare field that it did, some of the blessings that COVID did bring was telemedicine. There were elderly patients. There were patients that were having to travel hours and hours, or having to get out in thunderstorms to come to a visit that could easily have been handled, just like we're talking now, over a FaceTime, device that's HIPAA compliant, and to be able to talk and to be able to kind of have those interactions with patients. So we were there, we were on both sides of it, and so it was really awesome to see kind of how we as a company, and then us in the healthcare field, kind of really battled and went through it to be able to kind of persevere and keep on trucking.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's a really sorry. I was just going to say that's a really interesting point. I've heard time and time again for, as far as what a lot of people in the startup world have mentioned is that COVID has just accelerated a lot of change that was already in the process of happening. And so, of course, it happened in a very unpleasant way to some, and it definitely is uncomfortable, having to adapt to what we're calling the new normal. But like Jackson said, to leverage technology that actually has been around for quite some time, and allow us to finally utilize it to its fullest capability to say, I don't have to drive hours to have a consultation. In the restaurant space, for us, fast casual and these smaller footprints that still, provide good quality food. I mean, this is already the direction that our industry was going towards. Gig economy for students that, are wanting to gain valuable work experience, but are just so, caked with schoolwork. How do you gain work experience when you're busy studying for all these different exams and whatnot, and trying to keep your GPA up and running while working a job because you've got to pay for school? So COVID's been interesting because it's really allowed us to see, how, if we are open to this change, how promising it could be for the future. And sometimes as an entrepreneur, it's really easy to get relaxed and say, okay, we're here, we can coast for a little bit. But it isn't until a fire gets lit under your seat that you actually see how fast you can run. And so, likewise with COVID, I think that this has just been an opportunity for all of us to truly be a lot more open to this change and allow it to occur a lot quicker than it already was going.
That makes complete sense. Thank you so much, Omar. Front lines for